Good morning, everyone. Hello. My name is Michelle Sullivan. I'm the lead VAMAP retention coordinator with VDH in Richmond, Virginia. Welcome to the first year case manager survival guide breakout session. Today, our survivor guide people that will help us get through this is going to be our speakers, Rob Rodney, Andrea Reynolds, and Terry Bowen. Rob Rodney is a health educator with VCU's HIV education program. Since joining the Mid-Atlantic AIDS Education Training Center and the Virginia HIV and AIDS Resource and Consultation Center, sorry, lost my track. In 2017, Rob has overseen the development and implementation of several new programs to provide training opportunities for case managers and HIV presentation workers in Virginia. One such program was the Benefits 101. And it received national recognition from HRSA. Prior to joining VCU, Rob worked for several years with HIV HIV care and prevention in both small, nonprofit, and large clinical settings. He has worked as an HIV tester, non-medical case manager, medical case manager, HAPA case manager, and case management supervisor. Rob's career in social work has also included experience working in an inpatient stabilization, I apologize, you guys, inpatient stabilization unit for people experiencing mental health crises, and in an intensive outpatient program for people with substance use disorders. Rob has served on the VDH's Community HIV Planning Group and was a founding member of the Virginia Consumer Advisory Committee. Rob holds a Bachelor's of Social Work with distinction from Mary Baldwin College and a Master's in Social Work from Radford University. Thank you, Rob, for being here with us. Andrea Reynolds has her MSW and started working in the HIV field in 2004 in Brunswick, Georgia. In 2007, she relocated back to Virginia and started working for West Piedmont AIDS Task Force, utilizing Ryan White Part B funds and HAPA funds to assist her patients. She worked there for 5 years, first as a case manager, housing coordinator, and then was promoted to executive director. In 2012, she left WPATF and began working with Carilion Infectious Disease Clinic as a patient navigator. During her time at Carilion, she has been promoted twice and currently holds the position of lead medical case manager. In 2018, Andrea joined the training team at the Mid-Atlantic AIDS Education Training Center in Virginia HIV and AIDS Resource and Consultation Center as a contract case management trainer. She also serves on the state's peer review team, providing technical assistance and peer review for case management programs across Virginia. In addition to her dedication to the Ryan White programs, Ms. Reynolds serves as a full-time mental health clinician at Transformed Support Services, where she provides psychotherapy counseling, EMDR, and QMHP clinical supervision. Ms. Reynolds earned her master's in social work from Radford University and is currently in supervision for licensure as a licensed clinical social worker. And we also have with us Terry Bowen, who has over 5 years of experience in eligibility, patient access, and non-medical case management. Terry started her career in the Ryan White world as a certified application counselor at the University of Virginia. In this role, she helped people living with HIV and AIDS enroll in health insurance through the Affordable Care Act so that they could access life-saving treatment and medications. She was promoted to a non-medical case manager where she conducts intakes, orientations, resource navigation, and eligibility determination for patient at UVA's Ryan White Clinic. Terry earned her Bachelor's of Arts in Finance with a minor in Accounting and Business from Liberty University and is currently pursuing her Master's in Business Administration from Liberty University. Please help me welcome Rob Rodney, Andrea Reynolds, and Terry Bowen. Thank you. And I just wanted to let you guys know, if you have questions throughout the program, please put them in the chat and I will relay them to our speakers, and they will have portions where we stop and do a little bit of answer Q&A as well. Thank you all.
Thank you, Michelle. Today, so we'll have a good time about, we're going to be learning about case management, what it was like when I started in case management, and hopefully some good tools to give you all to work with while you're at your sites. So what we will cover today: introduce the current Round White Part B case management standards. That's our green book, that's our Bible. Discuss training requirements for case managers, explain the differences in medical case management versus non-medical case management. Learn about who Round White was and the different parts of Round White programs. Learn about the Virginia Medication Assistance Program. Introduce basic concepts of case management and start the discussion of self-care. Next. So in the chat box, we would like for you all to tell us who you are and who's in the room today. So start with your name, the agency you work with, your role, whether it's non-medical case management, non-medical case management, or other things that you may do at your site, and how long you've been doing Round White case management.
Hi, Cassandra. Hi, Amy. Hi, Troy. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome, everyone.
I apologize. I think we all made the same mistake. We hit enter thinking it was going to give us space.
I think so too. I was looking at the names pop up. I was like, oh, I got everybody's name, but not titles.
Exactly.
I do have Maria Culpepper from EVMS, Alejandro Martino from Fajas, Lorenzo from, oh, you guys are going so fast.
Hi, Morgan. Good to see you.
I have Colleen Judge from VCU, Daniel Doolin from Fajas, Cassandra from Southwest Virginia. Welcome, everyone. Ashley Stewart from Fajas, Andrea from Northern Virginia Family Services, Yusala from Crossover Ministries. Amy, thank you, Amy, again. And she updated hers. Amy Riddick from VDH, Public Health Nurse. Thank you, everyone, and welcome.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. So what does case management look like? That's going to be the main question that we're going to talk about today. And then at the end of this little segment, we'll give you all an opportunity to let us know what case management looks like to you. Next. So what is case management? Case management is a collaborative process, and I want everyone to realize that the key word there is collaborative. So you're going to work with your client. You're going to be assessing, planning, facilitating, care coordination, evaluation, and advocacy for options and services. Next. And I do want you all to realize, like, facilitate. We're going to help facilitate our clients, not do it for them. So putting out fires. I know a lot of us think that we put out fires all day, every day. And one of the things that I think of the most is on Fridays at 3 o'clock. Someone's out of medications and we've got to get them access. Next. Oh, but also we have to defend our clients while we advocate for them. And sometimes we're on the defensive and sometimes the clients are on the defensive as well. Next. Overworked. How many of us feel overworked, right? I think for myself, that's how I used to be exactly. I felt like all the stacks of papers were around me because there's so much that we have to fill out that sometimes we seem that we get convoluted or we're doing more paperwork than we are doing for our clients. And that's not where we want to be. Next slide. I think this is the most important for me though. Sometimes we think about as being a resourceful case manager, it's key to be that because you have to know, all the resources in your community because sometimes our sites, we can't provide everything to our clients, so we have to be able to work with other organizations within our community to be able to provide the best optimal care for our clients. Next slide. So have we scared you off yet? Does anyone have anything to say? I think for me, like I said, it's the one where we put out the fires. Any thoughts from anyone else? You can put in the chat box.
Well, good. No one's scared yet. We're off to a
No
good
one is
start.
scared yet.
They're numb. They don't know what to say.
Okay, well, hopefully we can help that going forward, okay? So next slide, Rob. So hopefully everyone either has this book right there at their fingertips on their desk, or they know how they got it bookmarked on their website pages, okay? So next slide. So the case management standards is the green book. It used to be a blue book, but it's a green book now, right, Rob? Okay, so an HIV case management task force was convened in 2013 and 2014 for the Ryan White, to update the model of the Ryan White Part B funded HIV case management being delivered in Virginia. It was implemented in 2015, and the full implementation was to take place by October 2016. And there were several changes and streamlining of old case management processes. I like that last bullet because back in the day, when Rob and I remember, you were doing everything for every client, right? So the good changes that took place with the standards is that it was more streamlined, and it helped you to identify and be able to streamline what a medical case manager does for their client as well as a non-medical. So it helped to divide that up so we can know exactly what we're supposed to work on. Next slide. So I want to read these verbatim so that everyone can have an idea of what they mean. Let me just move my thing out of the way right quick. So the mission of the Virginia Ryan White Part B HIV case management program is to coordinate culturally competent medical and support services that enable people living with HIV and AIDS in Virginia to navigate complex health and human service systems in order to successfully access and adhere to medical treatment, resulting in increased self-sufficiency, improved health outcomes, and sustained quality of life. And I think what I would like for everyone to take away from that is that we're here to help them navigate complex health and human service systems. It is so difficult when clients are newly diagnosed with HIV, because there are so many things to figure out. And I think the main thing that they hear are two things, actually. Sometimes they're like, well, I'm going to die. Or the other thing is, how am I going to afford this medication? So we need to be able to be there and be present to help guide them through that process. Next slide. Yeah. So the vision of Virginia's Ryan White Part B HIV case management program is that all people living with HIV and AIDS across the Commonwealth will have access to quality medical care and necessary support services free from stigma and discrimination, this world we live in. This will result in optimal health outcomes, lower morbidity, reduced HIV transmission, and cost savings to the Virginia health systems. So we want to treat our clients with holistic care from every aspect of their lives. Next slide. So what happened? HRSA defined service categories. So we have medical case management and we have non-medical case management. And the difference in those is non-medical case managers, they provide access, okay? They help our clients get services that's within the community, right? Including Part B services. And then the medical case manager, they mainly adhere to treatment adherence and making sure that they're able to understand, take their medications, and come to their appointments. But we also need to think about the socioeconomic and the environments that these clients reside in. Next slide. So what are the roles and responsibilities of medical case management versus non-medical case management? So medical case managers, they face-to-face assessment and reassessment. We have those timelines, 3 months, 6 months, and 1 year. We have to meet those. And then of course, it's the ISP. That is your steps, your guides, your tasks, things that you're going to work on with those clients. It's up to us as the medical case manager that we make sure that they understand that and that they understand that it's theirs. They have to take ownership of that. We're here just to guide. Coordinating services related to that ISP, case conference with other members of your treatment team. Sometimes, most times, the client is going to tell that medical case manager a lot more than they're going to tell that doctor. So it's up to us to be able to be that liaison, okay? Monitor the HIV medication therapy. Make sure that the client understands. Monitor the labs and disease progression. So we need to, if that client tells us they're taking those medications, we need to be able to look at those labs and understand that. Client education and risk reduction counseling, insurance navigation and assistance. I think we all know how hard that can be. Client advocacy. We need to be there, present, and centered with our clients. And we need to be able to let them understand that that's their space, okay? Outreach and case findings. Sometimes we have our clients there today and we may not see them for a while, but we need to reach out and see if we can find out where they are and what's going on. Treatment adherence, counseling, monitor and update that ISP, active linkages to partners and agencies. You have to know what's in your community, okay? Because we as one person, we can't do it all. And for the non-medical case manager, they determine the initial eligibility for the round-white funded services. That's access to care. So that is the Virginia MAP application, as well as the round-white Part B. It could be insurance and other aspects as well. Obtain supporting documentation from the client. I'm sorry, yep, we do have to chase down that paperwork, but it's important, very, very important. Conduct the intake interviews, provide orientation to the clinic and the agency. It's already a scary place. So we want to be there with them, let them know what's going on, how it flows. Performs periodic client access reviews for eligibility changes. Maintain the documentation. We have to be the keeper of the documents. Coordinates with outreach, peer navigators, VDH, and the community health workers. Coordinates eligibility activities, as well as maintains current information on community resources, Medicaid, SSI, SSDI, Medicare, TANF, SNAP, and ACA navigation assistance. Next page. So what is the education and training requirements of a medical case manager and a non-medical case manager? Medical case management is a bachelor's in social work, but it's a master's in social work that is preferred. And then if they can be an RN, and then an AIDS certified registered nurse is preferred. But they also need to have at least 2 years related experience in the field. Within 1 year, the medical case manager has to take the case management standards. That's offered twice a year, I think. Then you have HIV 101, culture competency, Virginia MAP insurance training, motivational interviewing, and of course the exemption is if someone's already a licensed clinical social worker or a certified case manager. And then throughout the year, a medical case manager has to obtain 12 hours of continued education units, and that's annually. For non-medical case management, it is a high school diploma and 1 year experience with HIV or healthcare field. And within 1 year, the same thing. You have to have those case management standards, the Virginia MAP requirements and the application, learn about Medicare, Medicaid, SSI, SSDI, the round-white eligibility, motivational interviewing, and the non-medical case managers have to have 5 hours of CEUs annually. So I know that's a lot on one slide, but we don't hang you out there by yourself. So the next slide. So how do you get those trainings, right? I mean, are you supposed to just go find it in the community? So per Part B standards, the case managers must have the training in the following areas within 1 year of hire. And this is where Rob and the rest of the team of teaching comes in place. So how do you find out about the HIV case management standards? It's the round-white Part B case management standards that's offered to you all. HIV 101, you'll get that from the facts and the medical case management curriculum, as well as the legal issues are the same way. Culture competency, that's provided through the medical case management curriculum and the foundations of case management. Virginia MAP, you learn that through the benefits days, and then basic case management concepts, as well as the client-centered case management is through the foundations of case management. And then of course, motivational interviewing, you have the intro to MI 2.0, and then the annual refresher. And all of these trainings can be, you can get those by going through Rob and his team. Next slide. Training for the non-medical case management eligibility intake is the same. It's the same way. The HIV case management standards, of course, is the Part B standards. 101 is the facts and the MCM's curriculum, legal issues as well, cultural competency, the MCM curriculum, and foundations of case management. Does this mean if you have foundations of case management, you have met the requirements of trainings? Not for everything, because you'll still need to have the other information. So here on the left, it's talking about the requirement that you need. And then on the right, it's going to show you what classes that you have to have. So for cultural competency, it's the MCM curriculum and the foundations of CM. And then the Medicare, Medicaid, SSI, and then that's SSDI, that is the Social Security Disability Act. So that's for individuals who's paid enough into the system, and those are through the benefits days. And then the basic CM concepts, and the client-centered, again, is foundations of case management, and then you have the MI. And I just want to make sure that I answer the question for the individual. So although you have the Round Right Part B case management standards, I think that's what the question was, you still need the other ones to be able to get the other requirements that are laid out for you all. Okay, next slide.
All right.
Next, I'll pass on to Rob.
Thanks, Andrea. Step in and just introduce you to some foundational concepts that we learn about through all of those training programs that Andrea mentioned. And so really kind of with everything we're doing today, from here on out, we're going to give you light touch introductions to some of these concepts and encourage you to start thinking about and working with these concepts. And then as you go through the full first year training process, each of the classes we offer takes deeper dives into each of these concepts. So the first skill or concept to know about is something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So Maslow proposed this concept. Basically, we have different levels of kind of achievement and need achievement in our life, and really talks about we can't move up this pyramid until everything in the section below has been met. So we start with physiological needs. So very basic things like food, clothing, shelter, right? Like, am I safe? Can I like physically live? Right? Do I have basic needs to survive? And then once we have the very, very basic, like, can I breathe? Am I surviving? Then we talk about things like, am I safe in my body? Do I have a safe environment? Do I have a means of obtaining resources? So whether that's employment or finances, do I have a sense of family? Do I have health? Do I have property? So very, again, basic things, but we're starting to move up the triangle just a little bit. And then we start looking at human relationships. So do I have friendships, families, sexual intimacy? Am I finding connection, right? So connection is a very basic human need, but it's actually kind of in the middle of the pyramid as you're working your way up. And so from there, we have self-esteem, confidence, a sense of achievement, the respect of others, and respect by others. So this is where we start looking at, like, am I contributing, and do I feel that I'm being contributed to? So again, that human connection gets even stronger. And finally, once all of those needs have been met, we reach what Maslow called self-actualization. And so this is where I can have the freedom and really the luxury, right? It is a luxury to think about and consider things like morality, creativity, the ability to be spontaneous and make decisions for myself, the ability to think about kind of abstract things like prejudice or acceptance of others and facts. And so really we work our way up this pyramid as we're developing in life. And the reason it's important for case managers to be aware of this concept is because very often, and the good example I can think of is like the medical doctor or medical provider will come to us and say, the client is not taking their meds. Why aren't they taking their meds? Rob, as the case manager, get them to take their meds, right? And sometimes it's not that simple. When we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we might find that some of the base level needs aren't being met, right? So if the provider is worried about the client taking meds, but the client is worried about, where am I going to sleep tonight? Or where am I going to eat my next meal? We may be at a dead end, right? And so the role and the job of the case manager at that point is really to navigate those base issues for the client first, so that we can get some security and stability in place for the client, to then, worry about things like medication adherence, risk reduction, and those sorts of things. So that's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And again, we delve much deeper into that in the trainings that we do. So today's just a light introduction. Be thinking about it. You'll learn more about it as you take classes with us. The next concept to be aware of is the trans-theoretical models stages of change, which comes from Prochaska and DiClemente. And the way to think about stages of change is really to try and think about something that you have thought about changing in the past. So I don't know about you, but for me, I have sat around a lot during COVID, right? I have worked from home. I've had the luxury of having a job that allows me to work from home. And so I spend a lot of time on my couch answering emails and doing work. And what I haven't been doing is getting out, being physical, right? And taking care of my body. And so it started with me just kind of eating potato chips, working from home, sitting on my couch. I didn't really see any issue with that. There was no problem. I was just happy to be able to work from home. And so that might be what we call my pre-contemplation stage. Not aware that there's an issue. I don't think about it. Then I noticed I couldn't quite fit into my pants as well as I used to, right? And I had to kind of put my belt loop out one or so. And so I started thinking, maybe something's going on here, right? Maybe there's an issue. And that's the contemplation stage where I'm thinking about change. There might be something I want to change, might be something I want to do about it, but I haven't really committed to anything yet. So then I was like, all right, I got to do something. I talked to my partner. We live in a nice neighborhood. I was like, let's start going on walks. Let's start thinking about maybe instead of a bag of chips, some carrots, right? And so that's the preparation stage. I'm thinking about changes and I'm starting to look at what I can put in place to make that change. So then we start going on walks. We start eating carrots. I, maybe don't spend so much time on the couch. And that's the action phase where I'm taking active steps to engage in and hopefully over time maintain that change. And that is the next stage is maintenance. So after I've, been successful in action, then I move into maintenance where it's really just become habit now. I go on that walk several times a week. I don't even think about it. I don't even think about making, the decision to eat the carrots. I just go to the carrots as the default, right? And so the other kind of stage that happens, it's just a normal part of the process, is relapse. So, I might have a weekend where I just veg out on Netflix and stay on my couch for hours and hours and hours. And that's okay. That's just part of the process. We delve very deeply into stages of change in our motivational interviewing program. The reason why it's important for case managers to be aware of this is it's good to know where a client might be in their stages of change. So if a client is completely pre-contemplative, right, they're not even aware that there's a problem or a concern, then our educator hats might come on a little bit, right? And we might use some motivational interviewing skills, so education and counseling combined, to help the client kind of learn about things and navigate through the possibility of change, right? And so then we're able to help the client decide for themselves if they want to work through the stages of change. So again, you'll get a much more about it as you do the motivational interviewing program. We're just introducing you to the concept today. So the next little activity or concept, and this one I'm going to ask you to unmute and feel free to participate. So, and I know a couple of you did this activity with me a couple weeks ago. So if you've done it, hold off a little bit. But this is one we love to do pretty regularly. So I ask, take a look at this picture. You are a CPS worker, a Child Protective Services worker that's been asked to do a home visit on a family. And so what I'd like you to do is just take a look at this picture. And either in the chat box or if you're feeling brave, go ahead and unmute yourself. But just tell us, what do you see?
I see the mother smoking a cigarette or something indoors with her kids next to them. Yeah.
Thanks, Alejandro. Yeah. What else? Maria.
I see things. I'm sorry. I see
Go
a
ahead,
lot.
Darlene. Go ahead.
I see the house is a little disarrayed. The dresser drawers are open. Look like the father just coming in and a kid coming to greet the father, but she's sitting there and not really tending to the children or the kitchen. It's a little dysfunctional stuff going on in this organization.
Thanks, Darlene. I see in the chat box, Maria says the child is happy to see their parent. Morgan says, I see a mom not paying attention to the baby smoking. The pros, they have food.
Yeah.
Colleen, groceries in the kitchen, food on the table, great. Maria, I see a family that has love, but not good organization. Interesting, Mariah, yeah.
I think I'm gonna have to agree with the last person who commented in the chat. I see a messy house, but I also see children who seem to be loved. I see hot food. I see fresh groceries and produce. I see a mother who could be tired from a long day. These are my biases aside. I see a father that works, so he wants to take care of his home. I see clean clothes. They need to be folded, but I see clean clothes. Cool beans.
Yeah, I was going to say, I see the mother maybe dealing with depression. The dad looks a bit tired from maybe working long hours. And, you know, like the other said, food, there's food there, just needs some help.
Thanks, Troy. Thanks, Michelle. Troy, thank you for mentioning bias. We do a whole workshop about bias. And what's interesting about this is we've made a couple of assumptions. So a few of us have said that's the father, right? We don't know that's the father. Same thing with mother. That's mother. So it's just interesting, kind of, we see pictures and we already have these assumptions about what they mean. So it's just worthy of note, not right or wrong, just something to explore. Ashley says, I agree with Michelle. This looks like depression. Callan says, I think the mom is taking her temperature. She's sick or overwhelmed. So that's interesting, Callan. A lot of people see a cigarette. Callan saw a thermometer.
Nice.
Give it about another 5 or 10 seconds. Any other final thoughts on this picture? Great. So what I like and appreciate about the answers is I know we've got some social workers in the room or some folks that have had some strengths-based training because yeah, there are definitely things we can look in that picture and go, wow, man, look at everything that's going wrong. But several of you did point out some of the strengths in the picture and kind of in the situation. So the strengths-based principle is really a goal that we as case managers should strive to work from. And it has basically 5 premises. So the first is just simply that everyone has strengths, right? No matter how, and I put this in quotes, right? Like how difficult or challenging or, you know, barriers, we love the word barriers, like how many barriers our client has, right? Every client has strengths. And so we look not at problems, but opportunities. What are their strengths and where can we help grow those strengths, empower our clients in those strengths, and so that hopefully they're reaching, you know, to the sky and beyond. Really, no matter the situation, right? The client really can go anywhere. So we also recognize that we are not the experts, right? That the client is the expert in their own life. And so we really do a disservice to our clients when we try to jump in the expert or you know, advice giver role. And so we really do better by serving and collaborating alongside our clients. And then finally, every environment is full of resources. So a good example of a strengths-based approach in the work that we do is an example of condom use. So if I meet with a client and give them 5 condoms, and I meet with them in a week and they tell me, hey, you know, I had sex 5 times last week and I only used condoms once. There's 2 ways we can go with that. So we can say, man, you only used condoms 1 time. Well, what got in the way those 4 times? What were the barriers? Let's talk about those barriers and try to overcome them. And if we do that, the client is going to tell you all of the reasons they don't want to use condoms. Right? They're going to list, well, I don't like how they feel and it kills the mood and I have to remember to get it, right? And so that's where that conversation is going to go. The strengths-based approach would say instead to tell the client or ask the client, wow, you used condoms 1 time. Tell me about that. What happened? And instead of the client listing all the reasons they don't want to talk about condom use, they're actually going to tell you all the reasons why they do want to use condoms, right? So, well, I know it's important to protect myself and my partners. I don't want to transmit HIV to others, right? I know that this is one tool out of many that I can use to protect myself and others. And the conversation is going to go in a completely different direction. This can be challenging to do in a medical model because the medical model, in a nutshell, is basically find a problem, fix a problem, find a problem, fix a problem, right? So if you go into the emergency room, you go into a doctor's office, they're trained and they're going to, because it's their focus and their job, is to identify what the problem is and address that problem, right? To work towards healing, discharge, that sort of thing. And the strengths-based model is a little bit different, right? Rather than find a problem, fix a problem, it's like find a strength and grow it, expand it, right? So with that in mind, I want us to take a look at the picture again and just tell me, and a few of you already did this, so tell me what's going right in this picture. Tell me what you see that is a strength in this picture that we might help empower the client to grow.
I see that there's fruit in the bowl, so healthy foods are in the house. The dad's working, so they have income.
Maria says they have a home. Morgan, shelter, love, food, clean clothes, furniture.
Yeah, the kids, they seem healthy. So they don't seem sick or anything.
Thanks, Alejandro. Callan, mom is practicing self-care by taking a break. Great. One or two more? I see pictures, so it looks like the family has or creates memories that they want to capture and share. There are a lot of resources here that, as someone pointed out, they might be disorganized, but I see food, I see dishes, I see clothes, I see toys. Colleen, kids participating in learning puzzles. I'm sorry, Colleen said that. Darlene said skateboard on the floor, safety hazard. Good. Any final thoughts about this before we move on to the next topic? All right, moving right along. Next, we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about paying for care and meds. And again, you get much deeper training when you take the Benefits 101 program. We just want to introduce you, if you haven't already been introduced to some of the concepts, so that you know what they are and can work with them, you know, until you're able to get to a Benefits 101 training. And to start with, I just want to ask, who was Ryan White? You know, we're all, or most of us are Ryan White Part B funded. So what does that mean? Who was Ryan White? And anyone, you can unmute yourself or put it in the chat box. All right, I'll give you a hint. I'll put it on the board. How's that? So Ryan White was a young man diagnosed with AIDS at the age of 13. And he really became famous because of his battle to be able to go to school. So he was kicked out of school. And you know, some folks now might ask, really? Like, he was kicked out of school? Why? Well, that makes no sense. And so I asked us to just explore that with a little bit of gentleness. You know, back then, people were dying quickly of this scary disease that no one knew anything about. And so we've sort of been through something like that with COVID-19, right? Think about the really, really early days of COVID-19, where we didn't know what it was. There was a lot of misinformation, still is. And so families were scared. And so I can understand, maybe with a little compassion, why parents fought to have Ryan White kicked out of his school. But he did have a pretty lengthy legal battle that made international news to be able to go back to school. Ultimately, he didn't return to the school he was kicked out of, but another school welcomed him in. And because of that fight and that battle, he became really well known as an activist for the HIV movement. Another thing about Ryan White is he was really one of the first non-polarizing faces of HIV. So, back then people associated HIV with being a gay person's disease or a disease of people who use drugs. So there was this kind of moral judgment that was placed on HIV. And, here was just a kid trying to go to school, right? So again, a non-polarizing face of HIV. And he died a few months before the Ryan White Care Act came into being. So Congress did create the program and decide to name it in his honor. All right, so I'm going to give you kind of a big picture look at how Ryan White works. There are 5 different parts of Ryan White, and I know most of us are Ryan White Part B case managers in the room, but it's important to have an understanding, at least kind of a big picture understanding of the different parts. So Congress approves the budget, and they send that money through HRSA, which is part of DHHS, and HRSA kind of oversees the Ryan White program. And they do it through parts A, B, C, D, and F. So they started with major cities where there were large outbreaks of HIV/AIDS across the country. So, and they really recognized that, how you combat and treat HIV in New York City might look very different than how you combat and treat it maybe in San Francisco. And so they gave money to large cities and metropolitan areas, put some guidelines in place, and said, go ahead and create programs and interventions to really work at ending the epidemic in your cities and metropolitan areas. So a little brownie points if you know. Anyone know the city in the top left corner? It's Times Square. It's New York. Yes, there we go. We got it in the chat box. Yes, it's New York City. The middle top, San Francisco. Yes, Morgan. Yes, Sergio. All right, this one usually tricks people up. The top right corner, anyone know what city that is?
Portland?
Yeah, Callan, it's Atlanta. Oh, London. London, it's Atlanta. So in the state of Virginia, we have 2 areas that receive Part A funding. So bottom left corner, that's DC. So the DC, Northern Virginia, it's the DC eligible metropolitan area. They receive funding. And then bottom right corner, anyone know that city?
Baltimore. Is that Baltimore?
Looks like it with the harbor, doesn't it? But we're talking here in Virginia.
Richmond. Oh, Richmond. They said Richmond in the top. Norfolk.
It's Norfolk, the folks who guessed.
Baby.
Yeah, so in Virginia, Richmond is actually not large enough. We don't have enough cases to be eligible for Ryan White Part A. The 2, again, in Virginia regions that receive Part A funding are the DC eligible metropolitan area and the Norfolk transitional grant area. All right, so HRSA has partnered with cities to combat HIV in the cities. The next thing they do is partner with all states and territories to create the Ryan White Part B program. So they basically say, every state, every territory, again, how we treat HIV and provide interventions for HIV in Virginia might look very different than how you do it in Montana, right? And so again, putting rules and regulations in place, they partner with the departments of health to implement the Ryan White Part B program. And one of the stipulations of that is that departments of health must establish the AIDS Drug Assistance Program. It's actually the largest part of Part B. It goes to the ADAP program. And in Virginia, the ADAP program is known as VA MAP. Terry's going to talk about VA MAP a little bit, so I'm not going to delve too much into that now. One note for this, and we'll see an example of it later, is that it's up to each state to define eligibility criteria for themselves. And so the eligibility in Virginia might be different, for example, than say in New York State or Nevada or elsewhere in the country. That's important to know if you have a client that's moving to another state and you're trying to help them link to care in the new state. So we've taken care of the cities, we've taken care of every state. The next thing that HRSA did was to partner with providers of medical care and early intervention services directly. So these are the large clinics and hospitals and doctors' offices that are providing HIV care directly. And there are 7 recipients of Ryan White Part C. They're listed here on the screen. I know many of you are representing these agencies, so thank you for the work that you do. Then the Part D program, it's known as the WICI program, Women, Infants, Children, and Youth. This really came out of the mid-90s. There were several studies that showed that if we can get women who are pregnant on HIV treatment and maintained on treatment during the pregnancy, the child can be born HIV negative. And so this put into place OBGYN services and other services for women, children, infants, and youth up to age 24 for those services, and really to follow the children who are HIV positive through their childhood. In Virginia, there are 2 sites that receive Part D funding. It's UVA and Inova. And then Part F is kind of a catch-all for lots of other things. So the first area is the AIDS education training programs. So it funds part of the work that we do here at the VCU HIV education program. So it's helping to pay my salary. It also goes to pay for dental programs. However, in Virginia, the dental goes through Ryan White Part B, but in large cities, there are some dental clinics that are funded to provide dental services to people living with HIV. So similar to how Part C funds medical providers providing medical care for HIV positive individuals, Part F funds some dental clinics in large cities. We then have SPINS programs, special projects of national significance. And the SPINS projects really are meant for short-term demonstration projects. So if your agency or state has something that you want to try out and show, how effective it may be in serving people living with HIV, you can apply for SPINS funding. And again, these are short-term, time-limited projects. So a good example of a SPINS project was, back in the day, we had E2 Virginia, and that was developed. So that was a database that was used in Virginia to track, information about people living with HIV in the state. And that was a, time-limited project that was developed using SPINS funds. And then finally, we have the Minority AIDS Initiative, which are funds that are meant to support programs that are either serving people in minority communities or they themselves run by people in minority communities. So you may find yourself asking, Rob, all of that is great, but I'm Part B funded. Why does that matter? Well, the first thing I want to acknowledge is that we do have people in the room who are Ryan White Part C funded and Ryan White Part D funded and Ryan White Part A funded. So case management, in most settings in Virginia comes through Part B, but there are other funds that are funding case management here in Virginia. Having said that, the DC eligible metropolitan area, and the Norfolk TGA have adopted the existing Part B standards. So as you learn about them, realize kind of no matter where you're at in the state, those are the standards we're following. So this is an example of what it might look like for an agency. I've put Inova up here because they're the only agency, I believe, in Virginia that receives all 5 parts of Ryan White. So if you remember back to the beginning slide, it all starts with Congress and then goes through HRSA. And so through Part A, the Washington, D.C. eligible metropolitan area, Inova receives Part A funds. Through VDH, they receive Part B funds. Through HRSA directly, they have Part C and Part D funds. And then through Part F, which is headquartered for our program at the University of Pittsburgh, they receive Part F funding. So it's just interesting to look at kind of what it might look like at an agency level. The other thing to consider is what that means for eligibility for your clients. So I mentioned before that, states, Part B funding looks different state to state, and the eligibility is different state to state. One of the basic eligibilities that we know of for Part B is that they have to be a resident of Virginia. And the example that I use is UVA. So Morgan, Terry, you can tell me if this is still the case, but when I was at UVA, we served many patients living with HIV who came from West Virginia. And that was important for case managers to know because they were not eligible for any of the Part B programs in Virginia, but we were able to partner with the Ryan White Part B case managers in the state of West Virginia to really wrap around and provide all of the care and services those clients needed. It's also interesting to note that Part C and Part D are not state programs. Again, those are federal programs that are direct contracts with HRSA. And so you can have a client from any state, eligible for the Part C and Part D programs. And then just be aware, we're talking about eligibility and how eligibility from program to program looks different. Think about the other kind of support services that are in places for client. And I only have a few of them here, but ones we're asked about often are like HOPWA and housing services, TANF, SNAP, CDC interventions, programs like CLEAR, healthy relationships, that kind of stuff. They all have their own eligibility criteria. And we as case managers have to have an understanding of what those criteria are so that when the client says, well, why am I eligible for this and not that? We're able to help them navigate that. And with that, I will pass it on to Terry, who is going to give us an introduction to the VA MAP program.
Thank you, Rob. So today I will be touching on the Virginia Medication Assistance Program. You will receive the full training during Benefits 101. And I do want to disclaim, I do not represent VDH, nor do I work with them. This is just my experience with working as a non-medical case manager. Next slide. So with the VA MAP, it is providing medication access assistance. It's through the Ryan White Part B. There are 4 different parts. You have direct VA MAP, Insurance Continuation Assistance Program, which is known as ICAP, Medicare Part D Assistance Program, which is known as MPAP, and then Health Insurance Marketplace Assistance Program, which is known as HIMAP. And everybody knows it as ACA as well. Next slide. So with direct VA MAP, for patients with no insurance of any kind, this also can include someone who is undocumented as well. VA MAP pays retail costs for the medication and mails them to the local health department. The patient will then pick up the medication from the health department or a similar site. Only medication that is on the VA MAP formulary are going to be covered, so you will have to figure out another resource for any other medication. This is the most expensive option. Everyone on direct VA MAP should be screened for Medicaid and ACA so that it can reduce cost. Next slide. Insurance Continuation Assistance Program is ICAP. So this is for patients with private insurance through their employer, and this can also include our younger population who are still on their parents' insurance program. So VA MAP will provide a Ramsell copay card. The Ramsell pays deductible and copay costs associated with the medication. The patient is still responsible for paying the insurance premium. This is usually with the employer and them paying it through their paycheck or some sort of that. Next slide. Medicare Part D Assistance Program, MPAP. This is for patients with Medicare Part D plans. Depending on the eligibility with VA MAP, they will pay for Part D premiums, medication co-pays with the Ramsell card, or both. And the patient must first be screened for the LIS, which is the Medicaid Low Income Subsidy. Next slide. Health Insurance Marketplace Assistance Program, HIMAP. This is for patients for health insurance through the Affordable Care Act, ACA. HIMAP pays for health insurance premiums not covered by the federal assistance with the ACA, which is known as that credit that some of the patients qualify for. Co-pays for all medications through the Ramsell card. This is much cheaper than paying retail for medications through the direct VA MAP. Next slide. So we have obviously multitude of ways to pay for medications. One useful resource is needymeds.org. We can use copay cards through the manufacturer of the medication, and of course, patient assistance programs. Is there any other resources that anybody else can add on to this? You can put it in the chat box. Maybe we can collaborate together and help each other out.
I have a question that says, do Gilead or Vive count?
Yes.
Definitely.
Morgan mentioned Gilead, Vive, and GoodRx. Yep, those are all the good examples.
Yes.
I'll add with the needymeds.org that Terry mentioned is that's good for all meds, not just HIV meds. So Terry was mentioning some of the meds not on the formulary. We're trying to find a way to get those paid for. So if you go to needymeds.org and type in the name of the medication, all meds are listed there, and you can learn about patient assistance programs and others that can be used to help pay for the cost of those meds.
And Alejandro mentioned Gilead's Advancing Access program that they have.
Yes, that is a wonderful program. We have utilized that multiple times. Okay. Go ahead, Rob. And now I will pass it off to Andrea.
Okay. So medical case management, a day in the life of a medical case manager, recommendations for a medical case manager, and what I wish I knew when I first started out. So, and one of the other questions was that they had that was sent in to us earlier was, what is your best proven method to keep clients and patients engaged in their care? So I start with the first one, a day in the life of a medical case manager. So for me, when I was full-time at Carillion, I did feel like a lot of the times that I put out fires, but I also enjoyed my job because I really got to know my clients, because I learned that HIV was just a part of them. It wasn't all of them. And I really tried hard to be able to portray that to my clients, because I don't want them to think the day that they received that diagnosis that life as they knew it was over. So a lot of educating to my clients about the progression of the disease, how the medications conquer the disease, and how they can move forward and complete their goals that they already had in their dreams for themselves. It was a lot of chasing down that paperwork. And that was mainly because I never wanted a client to have to experience an out-of-pocket experience of paying for medications or paying for healthcare, because we all know that the healthcare and dental, in my opinion, are the most largest bills that we pay. So if they feel that hardship, then they're going to be more apt to fall out of care. And that's not what I wanted them to encounter. Making the clients to be prepared and that they have an understanding of everything that's going on with them in their life, because they're now diagnosed HIV positive, and what their responsibilities are, like what they have control over and what they don't. So being able to be there and be present and making sure that everything that I do with my client is client-centered, because I may have one idea and they may have another. So it's working with that client on a one-on-one level, because no two people are the same, and especially in regards to HIV care, because their social environments are different, their home environments are different. So it's being there, being present, and just being by their side. So also, in the beginning, when I first started out, I was real nervous, but I'll get to that one next. So, so for me, the day of a medical case manager looks like being there, being present, being able to answer their questions, helping them along the way by being side by side, not in front of them and not behind them. Okay. And so my recommendations of new medical case managers: create and have a resource guide, because we are one person. I am one person, and we all can't, we can't do it all. So we have to use our community in the areas. We have to know what's out there for them. And Rob touched on that. We have to be able to direct our clients where they can go for certain things, and especially for the things that we don't offer. But also, we didn't say it today earlier, but Round White has to be the payer of last resort. So if there's an opportunity for a client to utilize a different resource, we need to be able to direct them there and know what the criteria is for them to be eligible. Educate yourself and the clients. I mean, we have to know how Round White Part B works, how Hopwell works or whatnot. So you have to educate yourself on things, so that if a client was to contact you and they had a question and you didn't know it, you can easily say, you know what, I don't have that answer, but I am more than willing to see how I can find out that answer for you. So always educate yourself and make sure you know the up and up, the new things that's coming out, any changes that they're made. And I think one of the things that come to my mind is utilizing the portal for Virginia MAP right now. That was a new thing. So clients were really, really like, oh my gosh, what does this mean? So you have to keep abreast on all the things that's happening so you can educate your clients. Listen to your clients. Let them make the decisions. Otherwise, you will be doing all the work. Their care is not our care, right? So we have to be able to understand. We need to be there with them and make sure that they understand. And also let them know that they have autonomy. I think sometimes we get so caught up in the what ifs that we forget that this is still an individual and they have the right to make their decisions. So remember that. And provide your client with information so they can be successful. Don't tell them what they need to do, but don't give them the ins and outs of how to do it, because we're setting them up for failure. And that's not what we want to do. And that's why I like to use the analogy that we walk beside them, not in front of them, not behind them, but beside them. And also keep in touch with your clients. Yes, I do understand that that's a hard thing to do, but you need to be able to keep in touch with them, because sometimes we send them out there on this journey and they don't know everything. So instead of them coming back to us because they may not like to ask for help, they just don't show up anymore. And we also know we have a lot of clients sometimes, and it's out of sight and out of mind, but just try to keep in contact with your clients. And what I wish I knew from the beginning, like I said, when I first started out in Virginia in this program, I was working at a small organization. It was just myself and another individual. The agency had been through a lot of changes. So I was like, oh my gosh, how does this work? Because I didn't have someone I could immediately turn to with a question. So it required trial and error, learning by fire, right? And I think that's what a lot of us do sometime in this field. And I'm so thankful for the case management standards and the foundations of case management, because it's changing that so much. But I was alone, and I really had to figure this thing out. And it was new to me here. I was in a whole nother state, and I was like, so where do I go from here? So I was afraid, and it required me to do a lot of diving into information. And at that time, it was such a blessing that I had opportunities to go around to other sites to see how they do it. And believe it or not, that's when I met Rob. Yep, way back yonder. So I was able to go around and just see how things worked and get a better understanding of what the flow was like. I think also for first timers, just remember, you don't have to do it alone. Oh my gosh, there's so many resources at your fingertips right now. So many people that you can reach out to. Don't be afraid, because we don't know everything, but we definitely can try and figure it out together. Refer clients to other agencies. That's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Just because you didn't do it doesn't mean you didn't do it. If you refer them out to someone else, that's perfectly okay. And let the client drive. It's their journey. We're just there for the ride. Okay. And then the last question was, what is your best proven method to keep clients and patients engaged in their care? To discuss that HIV has changed is not a death sentence. You know, Rob had mentioned when Ron White was out there, you know, it was a disease where people were dying left and right. You know, they really didn't know how to handle this. So unfortunately, yes, 2022, some people still have that thought process, you know. So it's up to us to educate them that that's not the case, that, you know what, hey, they're ahead of the game because they know their status. So they can do any and everything that they like to do. It doesn't have to be a hindrance. Educating them on medication and labs, because that's empowering. Because I love to hear my clients say, oh, my CD4 was such and such, but now it's this. You know, that's empowering to know that, wow, taking your medication every day gives you that power and that control. Sometimes they don't know anything about that. So that's a great thing to be able to help them along the way. And I think I cannot say this enough. Let them know that all their dreams can come true, and their buy-in is the main key, okay? Some of our clients come to us, you all, and they don't have people in their corner. They already struggle with that in their social environment, right? And then when they get this diagnosis, they really don't have anyone there. So we are their biggest cheerleaders. So we have to be able to empower them and let them know that they can still do whatever they want to do. Education and empowerment is every bit the game changer there. Next slide.
Okay, so a day in the life of a non-medical case manager. So for me, it's a little bit different here at UVA. We had started doing this new process where each one of our providers has a direct case manager and a non-medical case manager. So that way, any patient who does not have a case manager will not simply fall through the cracks. So with that said, on any given day, I could be handling medication access issues, which can include calling the pharmacy, VDH, and the patient. This could take a lot of time, or it could be an easy fix. And of course, we all wish for that easy fix. I can be assisting my provider in the care of the patient, which includes food insecurities, housing, insurance, transportation, and care coordination. Of course, I complete intakes for newly diagnosed, transfer of care, and return to care patients, enrolling them into the Ryan White program, going over their eligibility for the program, as well as services that they qualify for. I do many things within my role besides assessments, including being the person that they vent to for my patients, as well as to comfort them during tough times. For example, most recently, I had one of my patients, he was diagnosed with lung cancer, and he called me crying and said, "Terry, I'm dying." And so I had to be there, let him vent, listen to him, and comfort him. But then on that other hat, I had to be proactive and say, okay, let's take the next steps. So I therefore got him to get the referrals going into the cancer center and to pulmonary, and to get his oxygen referred, as well as I got him mental health within our providers. So, and I report that he is doing a lot better. He is not as scared as he was. Recommendations, I would say listen to your patients and understand what exactly they're asking or needing. Do not burn yourself out. Prioritize your workload. And of course, utilize your case managers, because they are kind of that foundation. They're above us. I know we're all on the same team, but they kind of have a little bit more in-depth training, and they are there to help all of us. What I wish I knew, don't panic. There's always a solution to the problem. It may be reaching out to other resources or just collaborating with other resource advocates to get the problem solved, but by all means, do not panic. I used to panic. If an issue came on my desk, I panicked big time. So it's okay, do not panic. There's always a solution. Next slide.
Terry, did you have an answer for the last question that someone had posed on the slide itself?
Yep, I see it now. Sorry, I did not see that. We typically use Careware to run our reports, to be able to track our patients. With our new way of kind of implementing, each of us non-medicals has our own kind of spreadsheet of all of our patients that are attached to our provider, whether they're enrolled in case management or not. So that way we're able to see, okay, this person's eligibility is coming up. We need to get in contact with them. So we've also implemented where we do as non-medicals a 6-month check-in. So every 6 months we check in with the patients, regardless if they're case management or not. So that's how we've been doing it. And it is still new, so we're still trying to kind of work out the kinks and figure all that out. But so far it's working pretty good.
Great. Thank you both, Andrea and Terry. For now, I'm just going to touch on some other resources that are available for you as case managers doing the work you do. So first are the VCU, the statewide and really countrywide AIDS education training programs. So VCU is part of the Mid-Atlantic AIDS Education Training Center, which is one of many AETCs across the country. All of the trainings provided by AETCs are completely free to people working with people with HIV. And so really, I encourage you to get on the listservs for all of the AETCs. There's lots of great webinars and classes that you can take from all over the country. And then we are also part of the Virginia HIV/AIDS Resources and Consultation Center, which comes from the General Assembly of Virginia and is managed by the Virginia Department of Health. And again, there are 3 VARC sites across the state. So check out varc.com. There are links to all of that within the links section of the attendee hub when we go back into the main rooms. There is also one of the things all of the training sites do are capacity building and technical assistance. So, if you have a question, if you need some clarification, if you want to work a tough case out, that's part of what we're here to do. And so don't hesitate to call us, email us. If you need customized training at your site, we can do that. So really, we're here to support you completely. Let us know how we can do that. And then finally, I will mention unofficially, so this is not affiliated with any of the AIDS education training centers, VARCs, VDH, VCU, any of that. But it popped up last year, really as a result of last year's summit. People wanted to create it because everything was virtual. So there is, if you're a social media person, there is a Virginia Ryan White and Hopla Case Managers Facebook page. Again, it's not endorsed by any of the organizations represented by, here at the summit, but it's a tool that's out there. Some guidelines for posting on that. If you're going there, obviously we're not posting any confidential information or client information, but here's a good example on the screen where someone was looking for resources in another part of the state and they just simply didn't know what they are. So as other sources are being developed, I know the Resource Connection that's managed by VDH is one tool that's in the process of being updated. But this is another way, if you like social media, that you can connect with case managers around the state. And so with that, we've got about 15 minutes left. So I am going to stop the share here and open the floor up for questions. So feel free to turn on your cameras if you want. Feel free to unmute yourself. Michelle's going to walk us through the Q&A section. So feel free to put the questions in the chat box or unmute yourself. And I'll pass it back to Michelle.
Hi, all. I hope you got a bunch of information out of that. It was great resources that they gave us. Thank you again, you guys. if you have any questions, like Rob said, feel free to unmute yourself, or if you'd rather type them in, I will try to keep up with you all. You all were typing very fast earlier. I do have a question from, are there educational resources or groups for clients to connect with?
Yeah, I'll take that one on. So each agency should have a CAB. So the C in CAB, depending on the agency, stands for client, community, consumer, but client advisory board or consumer advisory board. And so that's the starting place. Yeah, I see, Morgan, you put it in the chat. So it's the starting point, right, for your clients' voices to be heard, to learn about things that are available, and to kind of start that process of kind of group advocacy. Then at the state level, there is the Virginia Quality of Care Consumer Advisory Committee, the VACAC, and that was started about like 2007, 2018, and it's sort of like a statewide CAB. So it brings together consumers from all over the state to provide specifically education and training to other consumers. So that's something I encourage you to be aware of. There's information to that on VDH's website. I can see about getting a link put on the main page, maybe on our next break. But if you just Google like HIV Virginia VACAC, VACAC, you'll find information about that. So,
and Morgan said we meet monthly to go over, Lord, it went up on me, to go over what's happening with the client community, as well as for them to share information from the community. And said VACAC, Jonathan Albright, and I believe is the contact person for this.
Yeah, it's actually transitioned. So it was Jonathan, and he still is involved, but Jonathan has become the grants manager at VDH. The contact now is Camelia Espinal. So, and you can find her in the attendee list back in the main room if you want to message her. What other questions do we have? Lazara, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning, all. I have a question. So let me put my hand down. Because of what you mentioned earlier, was mentioned as far as depending on where you're at, each agency or has the Ryan White program as far as what's available. Like you mentioned, New York may be different from maybe here in Falls Church. One of the things that we did in 2021 for our clients is we checked in with them and kind of went over with them as what Ryan White program is about and what it's being last resort, and then went from there. With the new grant year coming, and it was messaged earlier that we want to make sure we are messaging the correct message across the board for all providers. Do we have a presentation that maybe we can utilize here to revisit and present to our clients as far as here in the North, or depending on where you're at, that we should cater to? Is there one?
So great question, Lazaro. To answer that, I know the VACAC did develop a client-focused, sort of what I did before, going through the different parts of Ryan White. So they developed a slide deck that does that. So again, if you wanted to use the VACAC as a resource.
The VACAC one? Okay.
Yeah, so I know that they have one. It might need some updating because that was developed, 2018, 2019, kind of within that first that we were doing trainings around the state as a VACAC. But that's one resource. As far as, and I should make one thing clear, as far as the AETC or VARC doing client-focused trainings, actually our job is to train you all, so that you all can then do trainings with the clients. So if you need training on kind of how do I build a training program for my clients, that's something we can develop. So,
okay.
And then we have a question from Darlene that I missed. I apologize, Darlene. It says, is there a certification or designation protocol, or should we have maybe one to be more Ryan White designated?
Yeah, another good question, Darlene. So one of the things that, at least as a social worker, I've heard come up many times. So in the field of nursing, there's the ACRN, which is the AIDS Certified Registered Nurse. actual test you take. You have to pass that test, and then you get that credential. And there is talk in the National Association of Social Workers in HIV/AIDS, NASWA, to create some kind of credentialing for social work as well. It does not currently exist, but there has been lots and lots of talk for that. So if you're a nurse case manager in the room, you can get the ACR credential. If you're a social worker, you know, who knows what the future holds. Any other questions?
I don't see any right now, Rob, but I do have one, just maybe a ton. Self-care. Sometimes we forget about that as case managers. I know that's important. Didn't know if you wanted to hit on that.
Yes, I'll piggyback on that. So self-care is definitely important. But I think what I want to say about that is self-care, you know, there's a lot of, you know, things that people say about it. But the main thing to remember is that it is what you do for yourself to get yourself rejuvenated and regrounded, right? It doesn't have to be going out doing some grandiose thing. It could just be getting away from your desk, going to take a walk, right? Turning off the lights just to rejuvenate, take a deep breath. So self-care is very important, not only for ourselves and our clients, but also as an organization. So it's very important that as an organization, you all may do things together. That could be case conferencing on clients. I mean, I definitely utilize my colleague here. At Carilion, we do the same thing. So it's about what you need to do for yourself to feel good and to reduce burnout and just to get rejuvenated.
Thanks, Andrea. Yeah, I'll just add to that. Self-care is so critically important. So really in all of the helping fields, there is a high turnover rate and high burnout rate. And self-care is so important that we've actually saved it for the entire conference. So our closing plenary today is all about self-care. I encourage you to take that session because it's so critical, as Andrea was saying, that you have self-care at all levels. And we'll learn about the different levels of self-care in that last plenary session. So we're talking individual and then kind of individual, you know, psychological self-care, physical self-care, mental health self-care, environmental self-care. And then you look at teams and kind of your systems in place. So what kind of self-care does your team have? You know, it is crucial that you take care of yourself first. You can't give anyone else a drink of water from an empty well. So.
And kind of with that, like the networking breakouts that we've been having, that's a huge networking with your fellow agencies is a huge part of that self-care. So that you do build those resources that Rob and Terry and Andrea have told us about, that, you know, you're able to network and build throughout Virginia, those resources that you can utilize to help yourself and your clients.
One thing I will say, when I first started, I don't know if Rob remembers this, but I thought it was so wonderful. One day we were all pretty stressed. There was a lot going on with our patients. And if I'm not mistaken, it was right around insurance time. And so there was a lot of things that were up in the air, and Rob just like stopped everything and was like, we're all going into the conference room and we are going to paint and make these like gumball machines. And it was so therapeutic and it was very wonderful. So any of you managers that are on this listening, take that advice. I thought it was very wonderful. It allowed me to decompress. And then after we were done, I was able to go back to my computer and go, okay, I can finish out this day and I'm fine. Like I had that mental break, and I can't thank Rob enough. That has stuck with me from the very first day that I started.
I appreciate you, Terry. And in full disclosure, we were painting gumball machines for the client advisory board. So we were actually knocking out 2 cats at once.
But it was still fun. It was
Thanks,
a mental break.
Lazaro, I have your hand up. Go ahead. You're on mute.
Sorry, for the continuing education, I'm program manager here at Nova Salud. And if there's any other managers here, is there any additional trainings that you recommend? I go through the norm as far as covering those for case managers, and not because I have community health workers that I oversee. And I just want to make sure that, you know, there's nothing that I may be missing out, or maybe there's something else from a manager's level, or maybe there's other managers here on this call that you could help us out with, perhaps, you know, so that we are, you know, there for our staff.
So I want to give a moment if there are any other, you know, leads or managers, if you want to answer.
No.
Okay. So Lazaro, first, I want to say thank you for being a lead, a supervisor, a manager that supports training and creates that space for your case managers. I think it's really important and shows how much we support the work that our frontline staff are doing by being able to, again, create that space for professional and personal growth and development. So as far as specific classes you can take, I would say keep up to date with ARC.com and keep up to date with MAAETC.com. They're updated pretty regularly. So you do have to get in the habit of checking it regularly. Although if you get on our listserv, every 2 months, we send out an email with all of the classes we're offering within that, you know,
right,
or so. So that's one way you can learn about trainings. If you have a specific need for training or a topic you want to see covered, again, that's one of the roles that we play, what we're here for. So if you see something not listed that you want training in, reach out to us. We can usually customize something for you. And then, you know, I encourage you to get on listservs. I mentioned all of the AETCs before, so get on the listserv for all of them. And also on the prevention side, I really haven't mentioned that, but I know many of you do care and prevention. The capacity building organizations or associations, CBAs, I might get that acronym wrong, but they're kind of the AETC of the HIV prevention world. And so get on their listserv too. They offer lots of good classes. And I'm sorry, I should have all this in a resource list for you. So I will compile a resource list and send it out to you all after the summit.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
And we're about closing out. So Rob, Andrea, and Terry, on behalf of the Virginia Department of Health and the summit planners, thank you for being with us today and all the knowledge that you brought for us. We're going to transition into our networking break. The networking breaks are designed to provide you that opportunity to learn about and network with your colleagues from around the state. We encourage you to visit the agency pages and to meet staff from each agency. You can explore the special topic discussion rooms. We have discussion rooms for medical case managers, non-medical case managers, agency leaders, and even a discussion room where you can meet with VDH staff. Please enjoy your networking break, and we will see you at the next plenary session. Woo, I can't talk today, y'all.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.